as long as skies are blue. You act so innocent now, but you lied so soon. When I met you in the summer,
WLYB-FM, Livingston, York, Demopolis, W263CF, Meridian. Live and local. The Twin States, WLYB.
Well, get me a boat. Big flat bottom boat. Make that boat float. Where we going? I said down, 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 down. Little supernatural.
Local music, local guests, local stories, local character. It's Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack. And now, Jacky Jack White.
Good morning, everybody. Here we are in Sumter County. Early in the morning. Not like the old song, early in the morning, no place to go. Got in a fight with my baby last night. Nah, well, you got someplace to go. It's Talking Back with Jacky Jack, the radio show for the highly informed Southern boy and girl, gentleman and lady. And we've got a great Southern gentleman here who is a SEC star and an NFL star. I'm talking about the one, the only Mr. Ben Tamburillo. Ben, are you on the line?
Good morning, Jacky Jack. How are you?
I'm doing mighty good. Good to hear your voice. Hope you're doing well. What time are you going to hit the gym today?
Well, you know what? We're in Memphis, Tennessee. Julie has a volleyball game, so we're going to skip it today and watch her play volleyball.
Well, don't get out of the habit, man. You know, you skip that one day. You don't want to do that. Hey, we've only got, I don't know, 197 minutes to talk today, but I wanted to ask you, as we say in this part of the world, about the championship games coming up, the Patriots versus the Jaguars and the Vikings versus the Eagles. You got any procrastination on either one of those?
Well, you know what? It's going to be, I think they're probably the best four teams, and it works that way every year, I think. But Philadelphia, you know, the team I played for back in the 80s and 90s, I'll be pulling for those guys. They're at home, and I'm sure that those weather elements will have some effect on the game. Minnesota's used to playing inside in a dome, so I'm looking for Philly to win that. And then I can't go against Tom Brady. I think he's the greatest of all time, and if he's on the field, New England has a chance. And
he's a general, isn't he? He's got the physical talents, but he has got a great football mind, has he not?
He absolutely has, and he works as hard on his body and his shape and his everything about his career. He probably works as hard as anybody in the NFL, but he's also one of the most talented people, and I think it's a great influence for people to look to and use as a role model, because he is the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
He's really something else. Boy, the Vikings had a extremely exciting finish. Is that an understatement? That last game.
These guys, every one of these games are close. They all come down to a field goal. These kickers are kicking 57, 58-yard field goals to win a game. It's as exciting of a season at the end as I've seen, and I just can't wait to see them play it.
When you were growing up and certainly watching college football very closely, because you knew you were going to be recruited, and of course you were even recruited by the Bear and
That's right.
Coach Bryant, and then of course you went with Pat Dye with Auburn and did tremendous with them, All-American and everything. But when you were growing up, was there any NFL teams that you gravitated toward, that you really pulled for?
Well, that's interesting you asked that, because being from Birmingham, in Alabama, college football kind of takes the major role. And we had Atlanta and we had New Orleans. So the NFL was not as big of a show for me as college football was. And I think that the fact that New Orleans was not they used to call them the New Orleans Aints, because they'd lost so many games. And, Atlanta was not doing what they're doing today. Both of these teams have come a long way. And so geographically, I didn't really have a team that I looked to locally. But obviously when I was growing up in the 70s, Pittsburgh Steelers and all those guys, the Dallas Cowboys, those were the favorites. But as far as just being growing up and just watching a team and pulling for one each week in and week out, I just didn't have one in the NFL. How
did it feel when you got to be in the NFL and you're playing with some of your heroes? What was that like? Was that intimidating?
Oh, it was a dream come true. I'll never forget. Randy White was a hero of mine. Played for the Dallas Cowboys. I used to call him the Manchester defensive lineman. Just a great player. Played on several Super Bowl teams. Because I was in Philadelphia, we played Dallas twice a year. And got to line up against him and look across the line of scrimmage and see one of your boyhood heroes, and actually having to go and try to block the guy. But it is intimidating, but it's also something that kind of makes you want to pinch yourself and realize how fortunate that you are.
Do those guys ever do anything to get the edge on you when you're a rookie and when you first start now?
Oh, always. The NFL, I've said it 100 times, is the most competitive environment probably in the world. It's athletics, but it's also business, and it's a bottom line. And so each player that's out there, if they're, I'll never forget, Jacky Jack, the first year I was at Philadelphia, there were 27 offensive linemen that were competing for 8 positions. So when you're competing against, 21 other guys, 19, 20 other guys, everybody's trying to get an edge, whether it's intimidation or it's whatever it may be, to be on that final roster. They're doing what they want, what they need to do to be there. And so it's it's very competitive. It's there's some older guys that have been around the league for a long time that can make it difficult for you as a rookie.
Mm-hmm. How so? Can you tell us a story about how one might have put a little comeuppance on you?
Well, I just think a lot of times, you're it's almost survival of the fittest, and you're out there during camp 2 days and in August and competing. You don't necessarily know the plays, you don't know the system, and you don't get a lot of help. Because you may be competing against somebody.
Well, somebody wants your job all the time. It's not.
That's right.
It's not really as if you're competing every year to really impress everybody and to make that team. But when you get on an NFL team, it's not quite play by play, but it certainly is game by game in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Well, that's one of the things a lot of people don't realize is that just because you make the roster at the first of the year, you can get cut any game during the season. If you play 3 games and get cut, you don't get your entire salary. You get 3/16 of your salary because you're paid each week after a game. And if you make the active roster and you participate in the game, then you're paid on Monday. If you make the team the first of the year and you for whatever reason, are released in the middle of the year after the first couple of games, the income doesn't continue to go.
Yeah.
And it's a week-by-week deal. It's a year-by-year deal, and it's, again, one of the most competitive
I don't guess you
scenarios.
ever saw any NFL player run out of his weekly pay, have too much week at the end of the pay. You never saw anybody do that, did you?
Oh, yes, you do. And that's what's interesting about it is that because you're paid back then you played 16 games, so whatever your salary was, it was divided by 16. So if a guy made $320,000 a year on his contract, he might be getting $20,000 every Monday. And Tuesdays were the days off. So a lot of times you come back on Wednesday after the day off, you see new cars, all kind of new things that people are going out and bought. Guys begin to budget themselves off of that $20,000 a week instead of realizing that it may not be here next week or, your career may not be here. And so, yeah, people make mistakes. They get that money and they go through it, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have somebody kind of looking after you, that can be a tough adjustment.
Yeah. Now, I have a question I'm going to ask you that's just straight out of the left field bleachers here, and that is there was a man that you played for that always impressed me with his intensity. And, of course, he'd been a journeyman coach for I don't know how many teams. I know he'd been a defensive coach for Buffalo, and then he one year was with Vanderbilt and the New York Jets and Minnesota Vikings, and really made his name with the 46th defense for the Chicago Bears, the Bears. And do you know how the 46th defense, how it was named? Do you know how they named that?
Well, they named it after a player.
Yeah, they named it after Doug Plank.
Yeah.
He was a strong safety. But anyway, how would Buddy Ryan feel about taking the knee during these national anthems and things like that?
Yeah, Buddy Ryan was old school. He was a Korean War veteran. And one of the things that he made a large emphasis on every year was as a team, the Philadelphia Eagles would line up on the sideline out of respect for the national anthem. And we would line up numerically, 1 to 99. And your feet would be at a 45-degree angle, your helmet in your left arm on your hip.
And that was Buddy. Buddy said that we were going to specifically do these things.
Oh, not only that, he would film it. And it was so important to him that everybody participated in that he would film it. And if you happen to be the guy that didn't have all of those elements correct, you might get fined, you might get cut. But that was something that we practiced at the first of the year. This is the way it's going to be each and every season, each and every game. And I really appreciated it because I think I would look at our team right, before a game and participate in the national anthem like that. The way that it looked, it brought a lot of class to our team, and I think it brings a lot of respect for our great country. So I was appreciative of that, and I'm appreciative of the fact that he took the time and made it an important element of every game.
Well,
not just the football game.
Yeah. I think if you've served as a sergeant in the freezing snow of Korea during the Korean War, that you'd probably have a little different perspective on things than some of these folks do today. Ben, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice. We're getting a lot of good feedback from your comments, and we hope to hear from you again, my friend.
Jack, I enjoy it, man.
God
Good
bless
luck
you.
to
Tell the family we said hello.
I'll do that. You do the same.
All right, bye-bye.
More Talking Back with Jacky Jack is on the way.
Not one phone call. No one understands your darn newspaper classified ad.
Sir, I am looking at our darn newspaper classified ad now, and it is perfectly clear. Sir, Ingrid missed hip, expect to perf to cap, educ neck filler, pit time, immediate open, exnit pennies.
What does that mean?
Sir, you place the ad.
With a newspaper classified ad, you get very limited space. Most job seekers don't speak classifiedese.
Sir, Ingrid is short for senior engineer.
Well, we need to change the
Well,
ad.
you missed today's deadline, but if we hurry, your new ad will appear in,
Please.
3 days.
Oh, no. Ta-da! Your recruitment alternative has arrived. Online at WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. Difference number 1. You have unlimited words to describe the position. 2. The ad is placed instantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 3. Once you place your ad, you can search the online database of local resumes, all for a cost lower than your newspaper ad. Browse your way online at WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Employers, listen up. Do you need highly skilled workers for your business? Alabama's Department of Labor exists to be a voice of opportunity for job seekers and their future employers. That would be you. With 49 career centers throughout Alabama and more than 25,000 different job postings online, the Department of Labor helps place workers in multiple industries. So if you're looking for quality candidates who are ready, willing, and able to help your company succeed, the Department of Labor can help. Sponsored by Alabama Department of Labor, Alabama Construction Recruitment Institute, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
More Talking Back with Jacky Jack is on the way.
This is Talking Back with Jacky Jack, and we've got a good friend of mine on the radio right now, and he is the very popular minister at Poplar Springs Drive Baptist Church in Meridian, Mississippi. He's preached at a lot of different places, the big old church over there in Madison, Mississippi. And he's a great golfer at times. And he's a great banjo player at times. And it's always good to hear the voice of Dr. John Temple. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing super.
John, I'm trying to make you a star. Is that all right?
Well, all I can say is I play golf about like I play the banjo. I need to keep my day job.
Well, I don't know. All you need to get out there on the links. You're just a busy fellow. But,
That's the way it goes.
John, one of the things that you do that, as I've known you over the years, and I sure think a lot of you, you know, that goes without saying, I guess, but I'm going to say it. Appreciate John Temple so very much, and his family. What a great family. But, John, you are a police chaplain. How many years you been doing that?
Well, I've been a police chaplain a little over 10 years. I also was a disaster relief chaplain, and I've been a hospice chaplain. That's the way I plug in the community outside the church.
Well, I got to tell you, people who don't know anything about this, that's 3 different types of chaplain, don't you think?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it really is. They all have their challenges, and you have to have your strength. You have to have your strengths for each and every one of those particular disciplines, and then you see so many things that happen in these jobs that I'm talking
you really
about.
Do.
We have to stay in constant prayer, and we rely on our brothers and sisters in Christ for support, and it's still a tough thing. You actually get in that car, the police car, with the police, and if they're taking a big chase or something, there's nowhere for you to jump out. You don't have a parachute or anything. What's the fastest you've ever been riding down the road on one of these chases, John?
On a chase, I've probably only been about 95. I've gone to a call though before, about 140 something, somewhere in there.
You
And
ever get
that is
nosebleed?
more fun. No, sir, I eat it up. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
The roads are real smooth when you get fast.
Yeah.
And
you're an adrenaline
that is fun.
junkie. Let's face
But
it.
the reason we ride is so that we can be friends with the people we're serving, and they learn to trust us. And they'll test you out like that to see what you made of.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good deal, though. We in a chaplain work, we come alongside people we normally wouldn't see. And
give me an example.
It's really a good deal.
Give me an example or two of some situations that are just not everyday situations, because a lot of people have no idea what you do and how you do it. Just give me a couple of examples and maybe educate us a little bit on being a police chaplain.
Well, a few years ago in one of the agencies I served, I was called in early in the morning because there had been a shooting. And what had happened, there was a guy that was robbing a house. And the people that they were at home, and they had called in and said, we're being broken in. But before our units could get there, the guy had entered their bedroom and they shot him. And so at first, I was brought in with investigators to be with the people, the residents of the home, to help them calm down so they could help give a report and we could investigate it properly. And as I stood by, and I gave them a typical kind of encouragement that a chaplain would, and they were able to relax enough to tell us what happened. And after we wrote the report, then they wanted me to go to the home of the robber to tell his wife about the demise of her husband. And to be honest with you, I'm white, and the robber was black. And so when we went to the door, knocked on the door, I asked if we could come in. We had a seat, and I had to tell this lady that her husband had died. The way I did it is the policeman usually would stand at some distance for safety. I knelt by her side. I held her hand. And I said, ma'am, I hate to tell you, and I called her husband by name, but he was shot and killed tonight. And she burst into tears, and her children came in, and we let them grieve a little bit. And then a little bit later, she asked if I knew any details, and I never know details that I share. But the detective saw that I had knelt down by her side, and so instead of standing up like he normally did, he came and knelt down on her by her other side and took her by the hand and told her what happened. And it seemed to help her to know that information. As we were getting ready to leave, I walked out, and I could just feel like the Lord said, you need to stop. And I was the last one walking out. I turned around and I said to the widow, I said, ma'am, would you mind if I hugged your neck? And she gave me a big hug, and we left out. And I had to work both sides of that event. But on both sides, it doesn't matter what's happened. People are hurting, and people need someone to support them, and that's what the chaplain's for.
Well, we put a lot of phrases and labels on things like that, but that's just being a servant, isn't it? And
it really is.
And serving others as God would have you serve them. What about children? Do you ever have to interact with children on that particular job?
We do sometimes, and actually, there's sometimes as a chaplain that the family will call us back in to talk with the children after they have begun to comprehend what's happened, so that we were able to help them think through what's happened and not have permanent scars on it. And at that point, you just have to get on their level and cry with them and hug them and that sort of thing. The traditional way that a chaplain came along, they say, is that a priest in France who was keeper of a chapel saw a man in bad weather with no coat, and that he went out and covered the man with his cloak. And that thing of coming alongside and covering is really what a chaplain is in any kind of discipline, whether it's hospice or disaster relief or law enforcement. We're supposed to be a good Samaritan that comes alongside and covers that person and help them feel safe until they can get with family and clergy and friends that can support them.
Well, it's, you just answered a question of mine that I had really thought about a little bit. That word chaplain is an old French word.
It exactly is.
And so I think it originally meant, you can tell me, do you know what it originally meant? I have an idea, but do you know what it originally meant?
Well, I have looked it up, can't remember, but I pictured it because this guy was the keeper of the chapel. That's where they got the word chaplain.
Uh-huh.
But we since then have made it to be basically a good Samaritan. If you know the parable of Good Samaritan, he came alongside and used what he had, and then he handed the guy that was hurt and injured off to an innkeeper and let someone else care. We can't do the whole thing, but we can do part of it. We had a situation here a few years ago where a man committed suicide, and his wife lived in a northern state far away. I had to call her, and we made contact with her through local law enforcement. And she needed to come down here, but she had not been down in our area for about 5 or 10 years. And so when she came down, I actually helped her. I first of all got permission from my agency and cleaned up the crime scene before she got there so she would not see blood or anything like that. I took her to the courthouse so that she could get her legal affairs worked out. I introduced her to the funeral home so that she would be comfortable with them. We took her to a nursing home where a mother had just been put in there and helped to work out details there, and actually helped her find a real estate person to sell the house and an auctioneer to liquidate the contents so that she could get her business affairs in order. And, it was a good thing for the department that someone would do that, but we spent a lot of time behind the scenes being an escort.
Well, that kind of describes what chaplain, the word actually really means in Old French. If I'm not totally confused on it, I think that it literally means custodian. And it seems like that when you're a chaplain, you're cleaning up a lot of messes, literally and then symbolically. And the other thought that that goes into my mind when you've been telling these stories, because I've heard a lot more when we're eating sandwiches in Meridian, Mississippi. But what you've been describing is, in your case, and I'll just have to compliment you. And this is a Christian brother compliment to another Christian brother, and that's we need a real person, we need an authentic person, we need a godly person, and we need a Christ-like person to do this type of work. And I think
that's right.
You've hit those categories really well. I know you don't need anybody to pat you on the back because the Lord is directing you, but you've done such a wonderful work there. Is there any particular story that you can think of before we get out of here? We've got another minute or two.
I went to Louisville, Mississippi after the tornado hit up there, and I was assigned to a particular elementary school there. And I got there the morning that they found the last victim, an 8-year-old boy that's from that school. And the principal and the faculty were extremely distraught over this. And that morning we helped the class that he was in draw pictures of heaven and this little boy, what they thought of him, and put him on his desk. We also helped process teachers so that they could function. I went 7 times to that school or that community to help people process through what they saw, what they heard, what they smelled, what they thought. And I can remember 2 weeks later going back, and that would be the day we'd take the pictures off his desk, and we helped the class process through that. We had one teacher that could not sleep for 3 weeks. And we got to school to do something that we normally wouldn't do. The faculty gathered around that lady, and I said, you may not be a Christian, you may not pray, but if nothing else, come put your hands on this lady and show support. And we prayed for her. She called me the next day. She said, last night, for the first time in 3 weeks, I slept all night. And really and truly, when we see a community hurting, all of us have something to offer, and all of us can love someone else. All of us can do that, and we all should be a good neighbor.
John, you went back 7 times. That number 7 in the Bible is pretty important. That's the number for perfection, but you had the perfect heart, and Christ had the perfect peace. And that's a tremendous thing.
That's right.
We're just about out of time, but I'll see you for too long. I'll make you buy my sandwich.
I got some money. Come on.
All right. I'll wait till you saved up. John Temple, everybody. We surely love and respect what you're doing.
More Talking Back with Jacky Jack is on the way.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given thousands of adjustments with the powerful MacArthur Method. His patients feel better, are more relaxed and stable in the back than ever before. Call today to discover his revolutionary treatment method for yourself. MacArthur Chiropractic, 4808 Great River Drive, Meridian, 601-693-1100. Hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 until 12 and 2 till 6. Tuesday and Thursday, 9 till 12. Call 601-693-1100 and online at MacArthurChiropractic.com.
This is an Alabama legacy moment.
Originally designated as a postal route in 1806, the old Federal Road stretched through the Creek Indian Territory of Lower Alabama. Alabama's Federal Road functioned as a major thoroughfare for western migration into the Old Southwest, ushering in a new era of national expansion and exploitation of Native American territory. Although much of the Federal Road has disappeared, portions of it remain today.
Sponsored by the Alabama Bicentennial Commission, the ABA, and this station.
Alabama and Mississippi is Talking Back with Jacky Jack.
That's interesting, as my mom would say. That was interesting about the Federal Road. We have a fellow here. I want to ask him a question. This is Alan Sharp of the University of West Alabama. He is the basketball coach, the hoops coach for the men, and they're having a great season. And we just pray it's going to be even better and better. But speaking of federal roads and everything, what are the roads that led you to Livingston, Alabama? And by the way, and led you and your family to go to a great church with one of the best, most talented ministers. That's the Livingston Church of Christ. The pastor, the minister there is Jacky Jack White. But what are the roads that led you there?
Well, Jack, in the coaching business, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where you might head, where you might end up.
You want that road to go uphill, don't you?
Uphill all the time.
Uphill.
Not the other way.
Yeah.
But as soon as I graduated from college, my dad was a coach, and that's all I was ever around.
You played at Lipscomb in Nashville.
Played at Lipscomb University
for the legendary Coach Don Meyer.
For Don Meyer, and I knew early on there that I probably would go into coaching,
mm-hmm.
And
as
soon
as I
graduated,
you up just a little bit. And how? I mean, with your dad Gary, who I just think the world of. Now where was he coaching at the time that you graduated?
He was not coaching at that time. He took a job at Trevecca Nazarene in Nashville.
Yeah.
He and my mom actually followed me to Nashville.
Okay.
When I went to college, and he was just athletic director there at Trevecca. He got out of it.
How did you know about that program? It's an NAIA program at the time.
What a story. And I'm not sure you know this story.
I don't, so I'm asking you.
In 1986, my dad was the head coach at the University of Arkansas at Monticello.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, go keep on, tell us.
And in 1986, David Lipscomb College back then won the NAIA National Championship.
That's right.
And the team that they beat in the
team.
championship game was Arkansas Monticello. And it's an unbelievable story because, you know, I was 8 or 9 years old at that time. I hated Lipscomb.
Sure you did.
They beat my dad's team to win a national championship. And I remember as I got older and got into high school, my dad would always try to encourage me because Coach Meyer had those camps that were so big. He would always say, Al, you know, what do you think about going to camp?
I worked them every year.
You know, Lipscomb has a great camp. You ought to go to camp. And I was like, Daddy, are you kidding? Man, I'm not going to camp at Lipscomb. They beat it. They beat you. They beat it. Called us a national championship. And unbelievable how the story turned out. And I ended up signing with Lipscomb.
Did you ever go to the camp?
Never did. I actually was in high school in Kentucky. My dad was the AD, athletic director at Union College. And I think behind the scenes, my dad and Coach Meyer, my dad worked it and encouraged Coach Meyer to take a look at me and to recruit me. He never told me that.
Right. I'm sure it happened, though.
Because my dad had a lot of respect for Coach Meyer for the program that he had. And I'll never forget, Coach Meyer and Tom Kelsey came all the way to Barberville, Kentucky, right before Christmas to watch me play. And that was big stuff. And I actually signed with them early, you know, not late in the spring, but early before Christmas. And what a huge blessing that was for me to be there and play for him.
Well, of course, Tom Kelsey was and is one of my best pals, and I worked at camp every year for I don't know how many years. That's why I asked you if you ever went to camp, because I would hope that I would remember if you'd been to camp, because we saw so many kids. But let me ask you this: hey, as my dad say, this is neither here nor there. But who were you most impressed with when Tom came up there? Was this young guy who was been the captain of the team, or Coach Meyer? Were you impressed equally with him?
Oh, well, you know, Tom Kelsey has a
charisma,
a presence about him. When he walks in the room, he's probably 6'6" and looks good and talks good. And then, you know, here comes Coach Meyer. He'll be slopping in and won't talk to anybody. So, you know, Coach Kelsey kind of did most of the talking and the recruiting for Coach Meyer.
Well, Kelsey, I always called him the Clint Eastwood of college basketball.
Yeah.
He looked like Clint. Well, look, let's go to your situation. Tell us a little bit about the run-up to these games that you're facing and how you feel about the situation that you're in.
Well, since we talked last week, we went to Delta State on Monday night and won a close game by 1 point.
In the last second.
Right at the end there.
Now, what was the shot? What?
It actually was a free throw.
Okay.
It actually was a free throw. So
now, Alan, look at here. I want you to give more than $1 tomorrow when they pass that collection plate, because I'm going to say a big compliment for you. You had a game that you should have won because you missed free throws. You won this game with a free throw. Have you thought about that a little bit?
Oh man, it's a huge. It's a part of the game that is very, very important, but not many people address it or talk about it. There's an old saying that most of the time, the team that makes the most free throws wins the game. And like you said, we lost one because we didn't make them, and then we won this one the other night because we made them. I think there was 5 or 6 seconds left, and we got fouled, and he actually missed the first one, and we were sweating bullets, and, and then he stepped up there and made the second one, and we won the game. So winning a conference road game is huge. Those are hard to get, especially over at Delta State. And then we played at home the other night. Union came to town from Jackson, Tennessee, and we handled them very well. You know, it was a I don't know, a 20 or 30 point win, and it was a good game because we could get everybody in the game. You know, in basketball you have a roster of 13 to 15 guys, and in college basketball, you know, a lot of times you only play 7, 8, maybe 9 guys. So you're gonna have a few guys that aren't in the rotation. And it was good to have a game like that where everybody could play.
Well, that does a lot for the morale.
Oh, man, it kind of lifts your spirits during a long season. Basketball is a long season, and you get to mid-January, February, you know, you've about had it sometimes, especially if you have guys that never get on the floor. And
they're not prepared.
I know, and we kind of needed that game. Everybody got in and lift our spirits, and we'll go into this afternoon playing Christian Brothers at 4 o'clock, and they're kind of on a skid, but they're really good. They shoot the three, and it'll be quite a challenge for us.
Have you ever had players that on both these sides. Have you ever had players that were absolutely great in practice but just couldn't translate it to the game? Or have you had people who were just so lousy in practice and just didn't, but when he got in the game and the lights turned on, it was something else?
It happens. We call it we call it when the popcorn's popping.
That's right. When the
popcorn's
popping.
You got to make plays when the popcorn's popping. And that happens from time to time. Mm-hmm. You just have to practice and be prepared when you get your number called.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we've talked about it before, and I see these cookie-cutter coaches in all sports. I don't like it. I don't like to see that. But you just can't handle every individual the same way, can you?
No, you can't. You'll treat them all fairly, but not all equally, is the old saying.
Mm-hmm.
And, coaching, it gets to be more about relationships and how you deal with people. I remember Coach Myers saying one time, you just never know how to reach someone.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes time. You have to build a relationship, and then the coaching will kind of take care of itself. The basketball will kind of take care of itself. So, boy, these kids, you got to work with them and build a relationship with them and build some trust, and then hopefully that'll translate to good chemistry and a successful season.
Your dad, would you say that your dad was a disciplinarian?
Oh, man.
Was that an understatement?
He was pretty strict. And
was there ever a time in your development as a very, very young player, was there ever a time where you would act like you were listening but you weren't listening? Did you ever do that?
Sure.
Now, was there anybody along the way, can you relate a story of you could have been middle school, we used to call it junior high, that time, or elementary school or high school, where a coach or an assistant coach or maybe just some individual who was interested, wanted to support you, said something at a key time or anything that just kind of spurred you on?
From time to time when I was young, my dad had various assistant coaches, and those guys had an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
Just hearing encouraging words from someone else, or just hearing someone say, hey, look, Alan, if you want to be a player now, you need to get this, and this done.
Yeah, name some names. Name some names, and where were they when they made these?
Well, there was the main one that stands out is a guy named Perry Kelly, who helps my dad at Arkansas Monticello, and he's a high school principal now down in.
Well, what's he like? What kind of guy was he?
Down to earth, very humble, very kind of a soft-spoken guy.
Had he been a good player? Or?
I'm not even sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure. But he was a loyal assistant coach and a loyal friend to the family. And
how old were you when you first met him?
Probably 10 years old.
So what would he say? I'm sure from the time you were 10, he would say some things.
Just the encouraging word. But, just hearing from someone else that, hey, you know what? You have a chance to be a player.
Mm-hmm.
You have a chance to maybe play in college one day. And, you need that from time to time because you wonder, is all this work really going to pay off? Because, watching my dad's teams and being around college basketball, I had an idea of how hard it was to get on a college basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of young kids and young parents today don't understand. They don't just hand out scholarships for college basketball programs. And I realized how hard it was, and just having someone else tell me, hey, you got a chance, was encouraging to me.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have anybody try to discourage you, and how did that work? Anybody ever do that?
Yeah, from time to time. Maybe the biggest discouragement was when you play and you compete and maybe you don't get the job done and you think about all the time you've put in. You don't want to let your parents down. We would go, my dad and I, from elementary school all the way through junior high, he would run every morning before work, and he would take me, and I would go in the gym before school.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already gotten up 100, 200, 300 shots while other kids are still in bed. And I just knew how much time I'd put in, and you just want that to pay off in the long run.
Yeah. I tell you, I can think a couple of 3 times in my lifetime when somebody said something negative, but for some reason or another, it was like somebody saying sick 'em to a dog. I think that I could take negative criticism and make it work for me.
You need to, because you're going to have it.
Oh, by the way, sometimes it's justified. Sometimes the criticism is justified. But here's an aspect that we only got a minute or so left. But how should I react to criticism? How should I react to it?
I think you should take it as a learning tool. You know, there's an old saying that what is it about criticism? Oh goodness, it was a Coach Meyer saying, and I've lost it. But anyway,
but he had something about criticism.
Yeah, I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I lost it.
What's the gist of the idea, though?
Well, you just got to get better from it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it bring you down. Use it as motivation. Use it as fuel. Use it as a learning tool.
That's right.
You know, it's probably not justified all the way.
It comes from the word critique. So somebody has observed you. They've made an observation. You can get real defensive and start saying, "Oh no, you're wrong on that." You're not. Or you can say, "Wait a minute, he may have a point. Maybe there's something I need to work on." And then, of course, we've got to have discernment. We say, "Okay, maybe that guy's just trying to talk me down because he wants my job, or he's trying to talk me down because he needs to discourage me for some ulterior motive." But most of the time, if somebody is giving you a criticism, that's a time when you can be honest with yourself instead of being so doggone defensive. I see people, if you just tell them one thing, they get so frustrated and defensive. And how can you learn when you have that attitude?
In coaching, we'll tell you, the saying was, we'll tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Right.
And, that's not criticism. I'm changing the point here a little bit, but we'll tell you what you need to hear.
Right.
And, you don't want it to be related to coaching. You don't want it to be criticism. And that's the problem with some kids today. They take it as criticism as opposed to taking it as coaching. And there's a difference.
Well, there's a difference between being too sensitive and then being someone who's got their ears open and their eyes open. Alan, always great to have you. Tell all your children I said hello.
We will.
We'll try to work on that ukulele playing with Allie before too long.
She's into it now.
All right. God bless
you, Jack.
Yeah.
You're listening to Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given thousands of adjustments with the powerful MacArthur Method. His patients feel better, are more relaxed and stable in the back than ever before. Call today to discover his revolutionary treatment method for yourself. MacArthur Chiropractic, 4808 Great River Drive, Meridian, 601-693-1100. Hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 9 until 12 and 2 till 6. Tuesday and Thursday 9 till 12. Call 601-693-1100 and online at MacArthurChiropractic.com.
This is an Alabama legacy moment.
Originally designated as a postal route in 1806, the old federal road stretched through the Creek Indian Territory of Lower Alabama. Alabama's federal road functioned as a major thoroughfare for western migration into the Old Southwest, ushering in a new era of national expansion and exploitation of Native American territory. Although much of the federal road has disappeared, portions of it remain today.
Sponsored by the Alabama Bicentennial Commission, the ABA, and this station.
Not one phone call. No one understands your darn newspaper classified ad.
Sir, I am looking at our darn newspaper classified ad now, and it is perfectly clear. Sir, Ingrid missed have expect to perf to cap neck filler pit time immediate open exit pennies.
What does that mean?
Sir, you place the ad.
With a newspaper classified ad, you get very limited space. Most job seekers don't speak classifiedese.
Sir, Ingrid is short for senior engineer.
Well, we need to change the ad.
Oh, you missed today's deadline, but if we hurry, your new ad will appear in,
Please.
3 days.
Oh, no. Ta-da! Your recruitment alternative has arrived. Online at WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. Difference number 1. You have unlimited words to describe the position. 2. The ad is placed instantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 3. Once you place your ad, you can search the online database of local resumes, all for a cost lower than your newspaper ad. Browse your way online at WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Alabama and Mississippi is Talking Back with Jacky Jack.
Talking back with Jacky Jack, and I'm talking with someone who I really don't think he really realizes how important he was to the music scene way back in, we won't say what years it was. I think late 50s and early 60s. And that's Mr. Sonny Roth. Sonny, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jackie. How about yourself?
Well, it's great to hear your voice. Now, tell them about where you worked and for how long, the job that you retired from first. That had to do something with the Air Force, right?
Oh, I was a civilian employee. Well, I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and then I got out of the Air Force and went back to Mississippi State and left there with a degree in electrical engineering. And I went right back as a civilian and went to work for the Air Force for the next 39 years.
You stayed busy. That's good.
I stayed pretty busy.
You were gainfully employed. Sonny.
Well, yeah, I think so.
You and I have shared many close friends. We've had a lot of good mutual friends. And one of your friends was a fellow by the name of Tony Holt, who passed away a couple of years ago. And Tony worked for public television and public radio coming out of Tuscaloosa. He worked on so many shows and things. He was very quiet. He was very humble. But when we started doing the Sukanachi Review a number of years ago, I don't know how many years ago now, 15 years ago, I guess, I was able to get with Tony, and Tony helped us a great deal with recording that show for radio and television. Well, I knew that he had been a part of the infancy of rock and roll in Meridian, Mississippi. And so I got him in a car, and we went over to, actually I used him this way. When we go to these places like Mississippi Public Broadcasting or Alabama Public Broadcasting, I would have him to answer all the technical questions. I was real sneaky how I do that. They'd ask me some big technical question. I said, well, I tell you, let Tony answer that because he deals with it a little bit more. Of course, I didn't know anything what they were talking about, and Tony could just answer anything. But I got him in the car on one of those first trips. I said, Tony, I want to ask you every question that I ever wanted to ask about the Jokers and the Flares and the original Rolling Stones. And Tony really delighted in that. He was a quiet man, but he talked a little bit about it. But you were actually in one or two of those groups. Tell me about how all that started back there. What do you remember about playing rock and roll as a kid in Meridian, Mississippi, the Queen City?
Oh, gosh, I could go on for hours, I guess, and talk about that. I was one of the original founders of the Jokers, but then I left to go off to a boarding school in Alabama for a year, and they kind of went on without me, so I started playing electric bass for Darrell Vincent and his Flares, and I'm on the 4 records that they put out early on. But I left Darrell and went back to work with the Jokers, and Tony was there playing drums, and we had a pretty good run at it. We played with, all across Mississippi and Alabama down into Florida. It was a good time. It was, high school. Instead of having a part-time job sacking groceries or throwing newspapers, we played music on the weekends. It was a party trip.
Now, there was an old country band back in those days, Danny and the Dudes. Remember Danny Holloway and that bunch?
Yes, Danny and the Dudes and Carl Softman.
That's right.
His band was playing also.
And they were good. I mean, they were really, really good. Jay Burton Fuller played with Danny and the Dudes, and they had a lot of great players, and so did Carl too. And did you ever watch any of those groups on television before you started playing, or when you were playing?
Absolutely. We used to tune in all the time. I watched Danny and the Dudes and Carl Saltzman. Sure.
What was the first guitar you ever owned?
The very first guitar, I think I was 12 years old and a big for it for a year, and it was a Stella. Got it at PV Melody Music Store.
Mm-hmm. You bought that from Hartley's daddy?
Sure did. My dad did, and my mom gave it to me for a Christmas present.
Mm-hmm. Stellas were pretty good beginner guitars back in those days, weren't they?
I wish I had that thing now. I guess
bet
every
you do.
guitar player wishes he had this first one.
Uh-huh. Let me tell you, one of the first guitars I ever had was a Harmony Sovereign, and I think my dad might have paid, it seemed like it was $39 or something like that, and not long ago I walked into a Nashville studio, and they had all these had a lot of PV equipment there with amplifiers and sound systems and everything, but they had one guitar after another lined across there, and then on one of the guitar stands right in the middle of the studio was a Harmony Sovereign, and they made them out of plywood, and I said, what's that Harmony Sovereign doing here? It was a Dreadnought like mine. It looked exactly like my old guitar. And he says, well, that's one of the best recording guitars that we have, so it's kind of funny. Well, look, you played a little music with Cuz Covington, didn't you?
Well, the Jokers did a battle of the bands with the Rolling Stones in Jackson. We were at Miss Harvey's, which you may know about, out there on Poplar Springs Drive.
Right.
And Cuz was in town. He was out there that night, and we cooked up a battle of the bands type of thing. So we did play that one show in Jackson with the Rolling Stones, and, of course, Cuz and Little Joe Tubb was there.
These people are hearing you talk about the Rolling Stones, and they're thinking about Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts and Brian Jones. But tell us a little bit about the original Rolling Stones. Came right from the Queen City, Meridian, Mississippi.
Well, they did, and I understand that the British Rolling Stones ripped off the name later on. But they were quite a successful group. Andy was a very, very good singer. They had quite a career going there.
What was his full name?
Who?
The lead singer. What was his full name?
Andy Anderson.
Right. They were on my show. I had the original Rolling Stones on my show one time, but they actually had a little regional success on a song or two, didn't they?
Oh, they sure did. They had a couple of big hits back in the early to mid-'50s. They did. In fact, they have a brochure, a flyer that Tony got from Cuz Covington from the Battle of the Bands contest, and if I can find it, I'll make a copy and I will send it to you.
Oh, I'd love to say. And by the way, thank you for the things that you send me by email about guitars and different things. I always enjoy those things greatly, and I was telling my little 12-year-old boy, well, he ain't so little anymore, but I was telling him he's tall. I was telling him about you and about your guitars and everything, and we had a great talk about that. Tell me a little bit about Miss Harvey, and she had a stage name too. I believe it was Virginia Shines. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. She sure did.
Tell me a little bit about those picking parties that they used to have.
Well, on Friday nights, people would congregate at her house out there on Poplar Springs Drive, and we called it picking and grinning. And if you could pick a guitar, play a fiddle, play a banjo, it didn't matter what, just jump in and hang on and go for it. Let
me break in just one second. Now, she was related through marriage to Jimmy Rogers somehow, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
I wonder if did that have any cachet as far as, she taught a lot of people how to begin playing the guitar. Do you think that had any kind of cachet whatsoever, or did young people just enjoyed going over the house, having those refreshments and playing music?
Well, she was low profile about that. I don't think many people who came to her house even knew about her background. She was a successful songwriter also, and I think many people who showed up had no idea where she was coming from musically.
Well, it amazes me. They used to have a guy who really could play the guitar, and I'm not going to name his name because he's a friend of mine. I loved him to pieces, but he could play the guitar, and he knew music north, south, east, and west. But I heard so many people over the years say, well, yeah, I took lessons, but I just had to give it up. I just couldn't understand what was going on there. And then I've heard dozens of men and women who are really good guitar players says, oh, yeah, I took from Mrs. Harvey, and she got me started. Said she wasn't a real great musician, but she got me started. Why is that, Sonny? Have you ever thought about that? Did she just have that gift of encouragement, or what was it?
I remember Miss Harvey being a very nice lady. She was very, very warm and open. She was just a friend to everybody who came to her house. She was a pleasure to be around. Like I say, on Friday nights, people would just gravitate. I've talked to people, from back in the 50s who lived in Laurel Equipment, Enterprise, and even those people had been to her house on a Friday night.
How many young people would be there on a
unique lady?
How many people would be there on a given Friday night?
On a good night, maybe 15 to 20 people. I mean, the house wouldn't hold everybody. On springtime and summertime, of course, people would be out on the front porch and in the house, in all rooms of the house. She would have quite a crowd from about like 8 o'clock to about 10, 11 o'clock at night on a Friday night there.
Well, I know people like Oath of Barham, when you talk about those picking parties, they all get soft and misty-eyed, and they say, sort of like what you're saying, if I could paraphrase it and sum it up, they'd say, well, it was just a great time of our lives. It was not a threatening environment. It was a super family-friendly environment. No alcohol, no drugs, or anything like that. And
yeah, I think that sounds good.
It's a great part of their memories. I know it's a great part of your memory as well, isn't it?
It sure is.
Sonny, I'm running out of time, but I want to tell you, it's always great to hear your voice, and you have inspired a lot of guitar players who went on and did real well, and I want to tell you thank you, and we hope to talk to you again soon, all right?
I enjoy it, Jack, very much. You have a good day, sir.
God bless you, Sonny.
You're listening to Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pain. Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given thousands of adjustments with the powerful MacArthur Method. His patients feel better, are more relaxed and stable in the back than ever before. Call today to discover his revolutionary treatment method for yourself. MacArthur Chiropractic, 4808 Great River Drive, Meridian, 601-693-1100. Hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 until 12 and 2 till 6. Tuesday and Thursday, 9 till 12. Call 601-693-1100 and online at MacArthurChiropractic.com.
The Army National Guard is committed to keeping the country safe and our communities secure. Composed of hundreds of thousands of citizen soldiers from all walks of life, the Guard is always ready to respond to local or national emergencies. We protect the homeland. We're always there when called upon, and in every state and territory, we stand guard for our communities. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Get me a boat. Big flat bottom boat. Make that boat float. Where we going? I said down, 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 down. It'll suit the magic.
Local music, local guests, local stories, local character. It's Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack. And now, Jacky Jack White.
Oh, that would be me. Lori, I sure like that singing of that guy. He's one of my favorite singers. Singing that down, down, down. I have on the phone one of my dear friends, Lori Davis Bennett. I guess when you travel, do they call you Lori Carter, or what do they call you, Lori?
Lori Carter Bennett, usually. Although my name isn't really Carter, I am a Carter.
Well, you got to get at and by the way, to introduce Lori to you, listening audience, and what's the fellow's name? Johnny Morris. Johnny Morris had texted in. Hello, Johnny. Lori is a member of the Carter family. Her mother was Anita Carter, and Anita and Helen and June were the Carter sisters, but the Carter sisters had a revolving cast of characters. And, of course, that's Mother Maybelle Carter, who made the Wildwood Flower famous on the guitar. And before, well, during that time, she was a member of the original Carter family. And they started country music. The two acts that country music is foundationed on is Jimmy Rogers and the Carter family, and they both recorded in Bristol for the famous Bristol recording sessions. I guess that was about 1927?
7, correct.
So
August
1927?
3rd, I believe, 1927.
Yeah, I've played that guitar, that Mother May. In fact, I tell everybody that. That's my only claim to fame, Laura. I played that big old Gibson L7. And
the L5, yeah.
Is it L5?
It's an L5,
Okay.
and it's in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's
we're proud that it's
unbelievable.
there.
Hey, Laura, there's so many things I want to ask you. You actually traveled a lot with the Carter sisters and with Johnny Cash and that big troop of folks. How many years did you do all that?
Well, I started when I was like 13, and with my grandmother and my mother and my Aunt Helen and my cousin David.
What kind of dates did you work with Mother Maybelle? What type of places?
Those were either where we worked like college, just like auditoriums, and then we worked festivals a lot because of her being pretty popular at that time with the younger kind of long hair people because of her recording with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band with the Circle B Unbroken album. We did a lot of festivals with a lot of bluegrass groups and dirt band, and let's see, we did fire halls, we did everything, just a little bit of everything.
Mother Maybelle, of course, she was with the Carter family for years. They went down to Del Rio, Texas, and worked off that illegal radio station coming out of North Mexico. And,
right.
And that was really the last heyday for the Carter family. A lot of people don't realize this, but the last live performance of the original Carter family took place in 1953 in Meridian, Mississippi. That was the last time all three of them recorded together. And way back in the early 40s, maybe even before that, that's when Sarah and AP, they divorced, but they would still perform together from time to time after that. And but there's always kind of a sadness there. I saw the documentary last night. I'd never seen it before, The Winding Stream.
Right.
Were you pleased with that
It's a good
documentary?
one. I was very pleased with it. I thought it was wonderful. Beth Harrington, who it was her dream to do this documentary, and she worked really hard for years on it. It was
How did she get interested in the
well.
Carter family?
Excuse me?
How did she get so interested in the Carter family?
Well, she knew Roseanne, and I don't know. I just know that was the initial contact, Roseanne Cash. But I don't really know where the interest sparked, to be honest. But she became a good friend of the whole family, and she surely worked hard on it for years. I mean, before it came to life. But it was.
Has that documentary
in 2005, I think, and then it took, many years before it came out.
Has that documentary won any awards? Are you aware of that? Has it won any awards?
It has, but I don't know specific names of them.
I want to tell you, I thought it was well done. It was tremendously interesting, and you've got a lot of screen time in that documentary. They have you on there quite a bit, and
right. She came out and interviewed me here at my home, and that was, as I said, in 2005. It was during the time Carlene, my cousin, and I did a musical here in Nashville about our mothers. Well, it was really based on Aunt June. It was called Wildwood Flowers, but we both played our own mothers in the musical. And Beth came and actually did some recording of that time when we did that, and she came out and interviewed me during the time the musical was running.
Right.
But
Carlene was the daughter of June Carter and Carl Smith.
Yes.
And I was a big fan of June as a comedian, and I was a big fan of Carl Smith as a singer. I just was, just a lot of us in the Nashville area, we all dug him so much because we always went to his rodeo, too, in Franklin. Did you ever go to that old rodeo?
I never did, but I heard a lot about it.
Oh, man, it
Carlene
was great.
Still loves horses right now.
Carlene
still goes horseback riding a lot.
had a good run on the national charts, but she's a great entertainer as well as you are. You both great entertainers. You sing an awful lot like Anita. We're going to play a track from that in a little while, but you sing an awful lot like Anita, and I thought an awful lot of your mother and Helen. They were just so fun. Can you? You have. How many times did you get in the studio with them to record? Do you have any idea?
Only 3 times, I think, actually. But we did 3 Generations album when I was 15. And
I've got that album. That's a great album.
We did that, and it was on my 15th birthday. Actually, I was in the studio one of those days. And we did another one with Audiograph that is, I guess I was 21 or so then. And we did one more that was a live album. It wasn't actually in the studio. But those were the only times I can recall.
I had a lot of problems recording with Anita and Helen. Do you know why I had so many problems?
Why's that?
Well, number one, we're supposed to take about an hour to eat or something.
Right.
Well, we'd go over to this place, and they'd start telling Hank Snow stories and Elvis stories and and all this kind of stuff, and Hank Williams Sr. stories. And here's my biggest problem. We'd start laughing. Number one, we never would just be an hour. We'd be over there about 3 hours, and we'd come back, and then when we'd start trying to record, we'd start giggling and laughing, and they had to separate us like children. Did your mother ever tell you that? They had to separate us like children because we'd get in the recording booth to do the vocals, and we'd start thinking about those jokes and stories and start laughing. So I really had so much fun with them. I want you to tell a story that not a lot of people know about. In that Winding Stream documentary, there's just a very short clip of Hank Williams Sr. and your mother singing a duet, because she sang on a lot of records that were big hit records, and she sang with Hank Snow. They did duets, and who else? She sang with a lot of people.
Well, she had a pretty good record with Waylon in I think 1969.
I heard that not long ago. That's a great record.
I Got You was the one that was most famous, but she did No One's Gonna Miss Me, and a couple of others with him.
And by the way,
really
I want people to Google Anita Carter because, I mean no disrespect, but a lot of people say, well, she sang a lot like Emmylou Harris. I don't know anybody who ever sang as well as Anita Carter did on record. She was an incredible singer and incredible entertainer. But what was the name of that? Were they on the Kate Smith show, or what was that show that they were on and Roy Acuff had eaten up a lot of time?
Yes.
Was that the Kate Smith hour?
That was Kate Smith,
So Hank Williams Sr. was very much struck on your mother because she's a beautiful woman. And how old was she? She was a teenager then, wasn't she? She was about 19?
She was, I think, 18, 19, something like that.
So anyway, Hank Sr. sees that her spot has been completely eaten up by Roy Acuff and his group. So he pulls her over there, and sings a duet on I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You. Isn't that the song?
That's it, exactly.
And so it was beautiful.
Great
but
video of it now it's on YouTube,
right. And did they
really,
ever do? They did
like
another
they're really
duet.
in love, but she was scared to death of him.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
she
because tell them the story about the ring and everything.
Well, she wanted to she loved Peggy Lee. She wanted to go to the Cope, but he asked where she would like to go for her birthday, because it was her birthday when they were there, and she said she wanted to go see Peggy Lee at the Copacabana. And so she said that they went there. Grady Martin, the great guitarist, was with them. She laughed and made jokes that he was her bodyguard.
Right.
He was a friend of my dad's, and she and my dad were already sort of.
And your dad was
Don Davis.
Right, who was a great musician. But go ahead.
Well, they went to the Copacabana, and she said he took her out on the dance floor and swung her around like she was just a cloth, just swinging her everywhere. And he gave her a little ring, which I still have, but it is just a small diamond ring, and it was nothing more than just a friendship gesture on Mom's part, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And she was given that on her birthday by Hank Sr. But that was during the time they did go for the Kate Smith show up in New York, and so
that's just amazing. And of course, you still have the ring. Hey, we're going to cut for break. Hang on the line, and then we're going to play a little excerpt of Anita singing to give these folks an idea about her singing.
Okay.
Right. Hold on the line. Here we go.
More Talking Back with Jacky Jack is on the way.
The Army National Guard is committed to keeping the country safe and our communities secure. Composed of hundreds of thousands of citizen soldiers from all walks of life, the Guard is always ready to respond to local or national emergencies. We protect the homeland. We're always there when called upon, and in every state and territory, we stand guard for our communities. To learn more, log on to NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Oh, I can hear my mother calling. I can hear my daddy talking. Lord, I can hear you all walking on that cloud up ahead.
Hey, Lori, you recognize that voice?
Oh, yes.
That was part of a studio project that we did called Southern Songbook. That I don't know if you know this or not, but that album, it's just I don't know how to explain these things. You've seen these kind of things happen, but that album is really venerated over there in the Pacific Rim of the country and over in places like Thailand and places like that. It's so funny because I saw a copy of it, and of course it had all this writing on it. I think this was Taiwanese that I was reading, and I said, but the cover was a new cover, but it had our pictures on the front. It was absolutely beautiful, and I said, "Oh, does this say Southern Songbook by Jacky Jack White?" And the man says, "Oh no, it says Our Favorite Lounge Songs by Jacky Jack White and the Carter Sisters." But anyway, Anita had such an incredible voice, and you have a great voice, and a lot of people remember you coming here to Livingston, Alabama, and singing on the stage of the Succotash Night Review, and then later on, we did a festival here on the courthouse square, and people still talk about that. You did an absolutely Great job. Well, I know people ask you this all the time, but now you did quite a bit of touring with the Johnny Cash touring group, didn't you?
I did, well, just really for about a year.
Uh-huh.
And then he would take me out for a week or so, years after that, just go for a week.
Right.
But when I was 15, I traveled with his show, and it was quite different.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier. But I don't know, it was fun, but we really had a lot of fun when we were all packed in a car together and
laughing,
and
telling
carried on
stories.
silly. But when we were traveling with his show, we flew everywhere and just flew in one place, the next day flew somewhere else.
You just got back from California, didn't you? Didn't you do some shows out there?
I just did get back from California. I did it's the 13th of January was the 50th anniversary of the making of the Folsom Prison album that Uncle John did. And I went out there and was in a musical of all things called Poets and Pioneers. And I was a pioneer. So, representing my family.
Uh-huh.
And Ronnie Williams, a good family friend and musician, and went out there with me, and we did that. And Vicki went out as well, and my husband, Herb. But we went out there and did a week and a half of shows in the Folsom and Sacramento areas, and we were able to perform for about 400 inner-city Sacramento children that have never been exposed to the type music we sing.
Mm-hmm.
So we introduced that to them, and they were very attentive and asked a lot of questions. I was surprised. But one funny one little guy asked me if I could rap. And I told him, well, no, I really couldn't, but he could come up, and if he knew how, he was welcome to come to the stage and do it. And finally, at the end of the little concert we did there, he came up, and the band that was playing with us played as the kids were leaving the auditorium to go get on their school bus. And he got up there and rapped a little bit.
You know what you should have done? You should have got close to the microphone and start whispering and doing one of them Bill Anderson recitations from long ago.
If I'd have known what to do, I didn't know what to do at the time. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I sure can't rap, but if you can, honey, come on up.
Lori, you could have done Red Savant's Giddy Up Go. You could have done one of those old recitations. Did you ever, I know you were on the television show that right now is iconic. I mean, people love that old Johnny Cash show that was on television. I think that started in 69, didn't it? Somewhere around in there.
Well, I wasn't actually on that one, but I did go to most every taping of it. I was just in the audience on that
show.
Well,
I saw you on, they must have filmed this from a special or something, but I saw you on the stage with your mother and Helen and June, and Johnny was singing. And so that must have been from something else. A lot of people ask the same old question. Have you ever noticed that? And I know you have a lot of patience, but they ask the same old question like, what was Johnny Cash like? What was June Carter like in real life? They always say in real life, like you would have known how they were in animated life or whatever. It was all real life. But can I tell you my impression of him that a lot of people might not know, but he really kind of struck me as being a little bit on the shy side. And I know he was secure in himself, but there was some little level of insecurity there. Am I right or wrong on that? Laura, you still there? Have we lost Laura? Hit number 4. And what we'll do while we're trying to get Lori back is this is her mother and Helen singing a song. We'll try to get Lori back on the line. Hey, Lori. Lori.
The Lord came by Martha served and Mary kneeled. Martha said, Lord, make Mary help. And the Lord said,
Martha, you better watch yourself. I want Mary's heart and Martha's hand. You gotta serve the Lord and do the best you can. I want Mary's heart and Martha's hand. You've gotta follow the Master's plan.
the Lord loved Martha and Mary too. He saw Martha had a lot to do. He saw sweet Mary listening in tears, and he said,
Martha dear, you're needed here. I want Mary's heart and Martha's hand.
Boy, I sure finessed that one, Laurie. I put on your mother and Helen and myself singing Mary's Heart and Martha's Hands. Do you remember that song?
I do.
I tell you what, we had so much fun doing it. Here's the question I was asking you. My impression of Johnny Cash, being around him just a few times, was the fact that he was really kind of shy, and I know he was very secure of himself as an artist and everything, but I could sense a little insecurity. Am I right or wrong about that?
Well, he didn't just come out in a room and start taking over or anything like that. He was just you always, when we would walk into a room, you would feel his presence always. I mean, even if you weren't facing him, knowing he was there. But he was kind of quiet until he really got to know you, and or at least in my experience. But he surely was good to all of us. The family enjoyed working with him, and they had a good long run with him from 1962, pretty much. They would leave the show for a while, every once in a while. He would fire them every once in a while, actually.
That's funny.
Just that was kind of in his days of when he was not quite right, I guess. But anyway, they would always go back, and everything was fine, and he gave me a good job in security for many, many years. And he was a great guy. Everybody
wants to talk about his drug addictions and of course, there's that famous clip that they showed in the documentary that you were featured in, The Winding Stream, where he's on the Pete Seeger show. And I saw that live on television in glorious black and white. Yeah, and I was a little boy, and I can tell you what, we didn't have any drinking or drugs around my house, but I knew something was wrong with that guy. And June looked like she was mortified, and he really was so jumpy and nervous, and he was high as a kite. And poor old Pete Seeger, he didn't know what to say, because Pete was pretty prim and proper. He's the guy who pulled the plug on Bob Dylan when Bob Dylan hit that Newport Festival playing electric music, But
right.
I've always said this. Go ahead.
I was a little girl. Mom and I moved up from Mobile. My dad and Mom separated for a period of time, and then they divorced and then remarried. But we moved from Mobile, where my dad had an early morning TV show on WKRG down there. And we moved there and moved into Grandma's house. Well, it was right at the time Uncle John was starting to stay at Grandma's house.
Right.
So he was around me a lot when I was, say, 4 years old. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that jumpiness, and it made you feel a little strange, because I wasn't used to that. I'd never been around anybody like that.
Right.
And he was always wanted to rock me, because I had ear infections and I had bad earaches at night. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was kind of frightened, but Mom explained he missed his own children. He missed his little girls.
Right.
and he was kind of being comforted by being able to rock me to sleep.
Yeah.
But he was just a tall, thin, shaky, like a ghost almost.
You know something? He moved back in those days almost like Keith Richards moves now. Yes,
Right.
you know how jumpy Keith Richards is.
Yes. He was just frightening looking to me, to a young child that didn't know him. I mean, but he was very sweet and kind to me.
Well, let me ask you something.
My grandparents, they spent a lot of time with him during that time of his really dark days, and trying to help him through that time.
Well, here's what I was going to ask you, because this is what I remember, because, you know, I lived not too far from there growing up. And I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there's two people that I think helped him get off his addiction. And, of course, Mother Maybelle and June, of course. But Mother Maybelle's husband and a doctor named Nat Winston, who was a psychologist, and Nat played the banjo. Do you remember Nat?
I knew Nat very well, yes.
Well, I kind of always felt like that, what was his name, Eck? That was...
yeah, Eck is what they called him. Ezra was my grandfather's given name, but his real name, but they called him Eck.
And he had worked with the railroad, hadn't he?
Right.
He had a very good job during the Depression. They actually had a little money. It wasn't like they were just poor folks. They had some money. But
they had a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, I've heard, and you tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I heard from the family and everything that he and Dr. Nat had an awful lot to do with his recovery.
They definitely did. They both spent a lot of time with him.
Well, they loved him.
And I'm sure. Well, they both loved him, and of course, Dr. Winston on a you know, he knew. My grandfather dealt with more of him from a religious standpoint, and Dr. Winston, of course, knew other ways to deal with his addiction.
Right.
But my grandfather was very, very religious and read books all the time, and he tried to share those things with Uncle John, and just tried to show him love, and he was just having a really tough time.
Yeah.
And,
didn't they have him didn't they also have him kind of in a cabin at one time?
I heard he went into like a cave. I don't really know. I've forgotten, to be honest, the story. But he was just kind of trying to go cold turkey off of the stuff he was on. I guess, or amphetamines. This is in the early 60s, 64, somewhere around in there. But they spent, just time watching over him pretty much, and trying to. I mean, you couldn't keep him away from something he was, wanting to do. But
well, the other thing about that, the music business in that time or any time, I mean, there's an awful lot of it around all the time.
Exactly, and I can see that happening. I mean, constantly going all the time and having to be here and running and carrying on
and poor old Waylon and those guys and Roger Miller and different ones, they had so many difficulties. Hey, we're coming up against a hard break. Can you stay on the line? I want to talk to you another 13, 14 minutes.
Yes, I can.
All right,
sure.
Stay on the line, Laurie.
You're listening to Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given given thousands of adjustments with the powerful MacArthur method. His patients feel better, are more relaxed, and stable in the back than ever before. Call today to discover his revolutionary treatment method for yourself. MacArthur Chiropractic, 4808 Great River Drive, Meridian, 601-693-1100. Hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 until 12 and 2 till 6. Tuesday and Thursday, 9 till 12. Call 601-693-1100 and online at MacArthurChiropractic.com.
Employers, listen up. Do you need highly skilled workers for your business? Alabama's Department of Labor exists to be a voice of opportunity for job seekers and their future employers. That would be you. With 49 career centers throughout Alabama and more than 25,000 different job postings online, the Department of Labor helps place workers in multiple industries. So if you're looking for quality candidates who are ready, willing, and able to help your company succeed, the Department of Labor can help. Sponsored by Alabama Department of Labor, Alabama Construction Recruitment Institute, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Alabama and Mississippi is Talking Back with Jackie Jack.
We are on the line with Lori Davis Bennett, or as she's known when she's out on the road, Lori Carter Bennett, a member of the Carter family, and she was Anita Carter's daughter. Did you ever go out to California and work any of those gigs with Johnny Cash where they had Johnny Depp hosting them or anything like that?
No, I wasn't involved in any of those things.
But your mother and Helen went on at least one of those gigs, I think. It's kind of fun.
I believe they did.
It was kind of funny to see. Well, it's you mentioned Mother Maybelle playing all those hippie concerts and everything after Will the Circle Be Unbroken. And if you've never heard that album, I really suggest Volume 1. Will the Circle Be. I like Volume 1. Volume 2 didn't do it for me, even though I hate to say this because I love Randy Scruggs. You know, Randy and I wrote a lot of songs together. That's Earl Scruggs' son, but we're going to start giving genealogies here in a minute. But Randy produced the other one, but it did not have the magic or the naturalness of the Volume 1, Will the Circle Be Unbroken. It's the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and your grandmother called them what? Do you remember what she called the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band?
Them Dirty Boys.
Them Dirty Boys.
Them Dirty Boys.
She said, I got another check the other day from them Dirty Boys.
That's right.
And I thought that just like Mother Maybelle, though, wasn't it? Did Mother Maybelle ever know that she was a star?
No, she really didn't. She was kind of, even when she was given applause, she would act like she was kind of embarrassed, and she was very shy, and she didn't like to talk a lot. You know, she wasn't a big talker on stage, and I'm the same way. I mean, Aunt June was the talker, but Grandma was just very, very shy, and it was almost embarrassing to her to be noticed as far as her accomplishments and musicianship. And she was very, very sweet and kind, though, I tell you.
June was the funniest. And all due respect to Minnie Pearl, who I knew a little bit, and her favorite cousin was Jerry Colley, who was a lawyer in my hometown, and I loved Minnie Pearl. But the funniest comedian that was ever on the Grand Ole Opry was June Carter in her heyday, and she was with Rod Brasfield. They were they were unbeatable, weren't they? Were they not?
Right.
And but anyway,
she would still try to pull some of the funnies out on the Cash show every once in a while. She would do fun a little bit, but you know, she got out of doing that once she quit doing the Aunt Polly Carter gig, as she called it.
You know, a lot of people don't realize it, but June actually went to the Actors Studio up in New York, and at one time really wanted to be a serious actress, didn't she?
She did. She did.
She had a lot of ability, but one of the things that she had maybe going against her was kind of what I've been afflicted with. And you know what that is? A Southern accent.
Well, right.
You know, she got that Southern accent over there in Poor Valley and around Clinch Mountain, and it's hard to let go of those things. But she had so much talent, and she was all three of those sisters. They were road warriors. They'd been on the road since they were just little bitty children. And by the way, when they were in Del Rio, I think they got more stacks of fan mail than anybody, just the three sisters.
Right.
And they were so young.
They did. They were so young and did so many at shows and for the years that were there.
I've seen a thread with
radio shows and transcriptions.
Yeah, I've seen a thread with the Carters that I've known over the years, and some of the folks that you're related to, that this sense of family is so strong. And of course, if they ever figure out that you're genuine and really love them, then you become a part of that family, which I love. I love that whole deal. But there's a couple of things I want to observe, and that is that a lot of people said, in fact, they said it in the documentary that I was watching last night about the Winding Stream, that, and I do believe this, I think that Anita could have gone out on her own, and she did make some great solo albums. She made an album the first time the Ring of Fire was ever recorded. She does a knockout version, but it's very different from the version that Johnny Cash did. And by the way, I don't know if you know this story or not. You may know it, but now June and Merle Kilgore wrote that song, Ring of Fire.
Right.
Did you know that they were having trouble with the bridge? Have you ever heard that story?
Yes, my mother was very much a part of writing that song too, but didn't get recognition on it.
That's right. The girls, as we call them, they went in there and they helped them get the bridge worked out, because I can just see Merle Kilgore right now getting frustrated. I thought a lot of him too, but I could just see him getting frustrated. They couldn't figure out a way to bridge up Ring of Fire. And really, with the way Anita recorded the song, there's not a whole lot of, you don't really have that emphasis on the bridge as much. But anyway, anywho, what I'm going to say is they said that she could have gone out on her own and really done gangbusters, because in her time, she was regarded as one of the very best singers in the history of country music, and she was also regarded as one of the most beautiful women in country music when she was younger. But she loved the family so much, she couldn't leave the family, could she?
No, she wouldn't do it. She just didn't. That isn't what she wanted. She didn't want to be a star. She wanted to be one of the Carter sisters, one of the Carter family.
Right.
And that was exactly what she wanted and what she was content doing and being.
You were close to another Carter that I absolutely thought the world of, and that was Miss Jeanette Carter, who was Sarah Carter's daughter. And Jeanette, when she was younger, she was a beautiful young girl, I thought. And
absolutely.
Jeanette would go down there and
pretty dimples and smile.
Oh, just beautiful. And she'd sing on that Del Rio station. And so I asked her, and you're gonna know exactly what I'm gonna say here, but I asked her one time, and she had that mountain kind of way of talking, like Mother Maybelle had that kind of a mountain way, and Sarah did.
Right.
And I said to Miss Jeanette one time, I said, Miss Jeanette, you could have been a big star. Why didn't you stay down there in Del Rio, or go out to California, or come back to Nashville and knock it out? And she looked kind of straight ahead, and she says, honey, it was too far from the valley.
That's right. She didn't want to leave poor Valley.
It was too far from the valley. So that impressed me. I want to talk in the last 2 or 3 minutes about someone who never gets any credit whatsoever, and that is Vicki Langdon.
Yes, Vicki's a good friend and faithful fan of our family for many years. She's just been a great friend, and I met her in 1980 in Nashville, Arkansas. She had met my mom before, and she'd followed them. She became a fan when they were on the Johnny Cash Show TV series, and she watched it every week as a little girl. And we're about the same age. I'm a little older, but not much. But anyway, we became really close friends, and she lives next door to me, and she has taken photographs of our family ever since she's known us, and she's taken many pictures of Uncle John and Aunt June that have never even been seen. And all of the family, actually, Helen and Mom, and she's taken pictures of my kids and my grandkids and my whole family.
She's a great photographer, and that's an understatement. She's one of the best photographers I've ever seen. Do you know what she did? My twin brother, myself. In fact, you were invited to be on that dadgum show, and you had to be somewhere. But we did a show in Middle Tennessee. I'm trying to think when that was. Probably about 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, here's Vicki Langdon. She's right there, and she's sitting at a table, and we got her table kind of close, and I looked down there, and she had her camera, and I think she took 250 pictures that night.
Oh, yeah, she'll take a bunch.
And we tried to pay her for them, and she shared them with us, and boy, they were some of the best pictures we've ever had. I told her to try to make me look about 25 years younger, but she did not succeed there, but she made a good try at it. Lori, you know how I feel about your family, and when people ask me what kind of relationship you had with Helen and Anita, I always tell them they were just like the sisters I never had, and we shared an awful lot of laughs. We'd cry every once in a while, but a lot more laughs than tears, and it means so much to share this time with you today. I know our listening audience has really enjoyed getting to hear from you, and I hope we can get you down here and sing on the review before too long.
Well, I'd love to come back.
All right, we'll do it. I'll play a little guitar behind you. Listen, Lori, tell everyone we said hello, and we send our very, very best to Vicki and the entire family. God bless you.
Okay. Thank you, honey.
More Talking Back with Jackie Jack is on the way.
Welcome to What Is Wrong With You People. I'm your host, the Fairy Godmother, and with me today is the Leprechaun.
Hello!
And our good friend, the Gift Horse. Okay, we're pretty much used to people not believing in us.
Makes no sense. All folks gotta do is follow me to a pot of gold. A pot of gold!
And you've seen what I can do with a pumpkin and a wand.
Amen, brother. Right in the mouth.
But why on earth are people putting off going to WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com to find a great job?
Gotta believe in those guys.
The jobs are local. It's easy to use.
He nailed it. Completely free.
And still, there are job seekers who haven't logged on to WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com.
What is wrong with you people? I mean, fine. You don't want to trust the little green man.
Fairy godmothers may be a little out of favor today. If wishes were horses.
Good one.
But seriously, no excuses. Go today. WestAlabamaHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
That you can believe in. Oh, this guy.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given thousands of adjustments with the powerful MacArthur Method. His patients feel better, are more relaxed and stable in the back than ever before. Call today to discover his revolutionary treatment method for yourself. MacArthur Chiropractic, 4808 Great River Drive, Meridian, 601-693-1100. Hours are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 until 12 and 2 till 6. Tuesday and Thursday, 9 till 12. Call 601-693-1100 and online at MacArthurChiropractic.com.
Alabama and Mississippi is Talking Back with Jackie Jack.
All right. We're back with it. I've got to point out before we go any further, I don't know if she did that on purpose or not, but when she signed off, Laura said, "Thank you, honey." And that's what Jeanette Carter would always say. She called me up one time, and she said, "Honey," it was on a Thursday. She said, "Honey, I'd like for you to come up here to Poor Valley to the Fold because Johnny and June are up here, and I think it's going to be the last time they'll ever perform together. Their health is just bad." And I said, "Well, Miss Jeanette," this just shows you how stupid I am. I said, "Miss Jeanette," I said, "this is Thursday. I got to preach on Sunday." I said, "I just kind of hate to put people in the lurch like that, and I hope you understand." She says, "I do, honey." Everything was honey. And that was the last time that Johnny Cash and June Carter ever performed together. Well, the way that I got interested in the Carter sisters, and then my great friend Cindy Walker, who was the most successful female songwriter in country music history. And, of course, I'd already knew Dottie West and some of those people, but there was a book that was written by Robert K. Orman in, let's say, the 80s. It was called Finding Her Voice, and it was all about the women artists, singers, and writers and musicians in country music. And it was just an incredible book. And it was, I wasn't really, the reason I bought the book is they had this bookstore, and I was waiting around for somebody, and I looked out there, and I kept looking for books that might be interested, and I said, well, there's a book that's got Mother Maybelle in it and Dottie West. Of course, I knew Dottie. And I said, I think I'm just going to buy that book. That book changed my life because I got to meet and know those people. And so I've always thought that in the back of my mind, how important it was that I got that book. Well, there's a new important book out, and it's called Alabama Women. And it's their life and times, and it's an anthology. And for those of us who grew up in woodpiles, anthology means that it's a collection of different contributors and writers. And Lisa Dorr and Susan Ashmore of the University of Alabama History Department, they put this thing together and gathered up some writers for it. And it's published by the University of Georgia Press. And one of the writers is our very own Tina Jones, who's the executive director of the Division of Economic Development and Outreach at the University of West Alabama. Tina, good to have you here today.
Thanks for asking me to be here, Jack.
And you've been with also the Center for the Study of the Black Belt for an awful long time.
I have.
Because we used to work together to put the Sukanachi Review on together, and we never would have been able to have done that without that Center for the Study of the Black Belt. You guys really carried us along and helped us, and I hope you feel good about the fact that there's so many young artists that came off that show and did really well, like William Michael Morton had a #1 country song. And then some of these folks that nobody had ever heard of, they got interviewed all over the country, and their records were heard I can still call them records. Their CDs or records were heard all over the world, and you guys were behind that. You helped me with that.
Yes, it was exciting, and it still is, to watch those careers grow.
Oh, yeah.
But also to remind people of the rich history that continues to be made in this area.
Well, that was one of the first conversations I had. You know, I had to meet with a committee.
Yes.
You don't ever go on a committee meeting, do you?
Oh, just a couple every now and then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's when Dr. Holland was the president, and we went in this committee meeting, and I knew all the people in the committee. I mean, I did. I knew, and they knew me, and they were just smiling and everything. They came up with every reason in the world why we couldn't do that thing. Mm-hmm. And so, well, you were in that meeting.
I was.
You were in that meeting, but you didn't. You weren't negative. You were positive. But do you remember the tenor of that meeting? It wasn't really they were all pleasant, of course, because they're my friends. But I mean, they gave us every reason in the world why it wouldn't work. And then Dr. Holland, after they all left, he said, "I don't know that they get what you're talking about." I said, "Well, they probably don't." I was thinking about the next entity I was going to pitch the Sukanachi Review to, and he says, "Well, don't worry about it. We're going to do it anyway." Mm-hmm. And that's the way things work sometime, and the rest is history, so to speak. But look, tell us about this book and what your contribution is to it.
Okay. As you said, the book is called Alabama Women, Their Lives and Time, and University of Georgia Press has a series for the southeastern states about women in all the different states in the southeast. And so in this book, they feature 18 Alabama women and their lives and times, anywhere from Creek women all the way to Rosa Parks. And we have 18 of those, and 3 of those are from Sumter County: Mariah Faring, Ruby Pickens Tart, and Julia Tutwiler. Okay. And, of course, I wrote the chapter on Ruby Pickens Tart. And kind of like the book you were talking about, my title of my book is my chapter is Composing a New Score, because Ruby Pickens Tart was breaking new ground and looking for a way to find her voice in the work she did.
Right. I have a CD here. I guess we're going to have time to play that today, but it was by one of my all-time favorite groups. I discovered them rediscovered them only about 20 years ago, and that was the Kingston Trio.
Yes.
And I got to know members of the Kingston Trio, and we all got to be pals. But Ruby Pickens Tart was a song catcher and a story catcher.
That's right.
And so she recognized the value of these songs and stories, and she would go throughout this region. And it was a little controversial what she was doing. How so?
It was because she was going into, as a white woman of that time, going into African-American churches, going into African-American homes, and collecting songs and stories. She saw the importance of that.
And one of the things I was going to say is as the Kingston Trio, they were hugely commercial. They sold millions. And 3 or 4 or 5 of those songs that she caught, they were not only on those albums, and I think her lawyer, Drayton Pruitt, got her some good royalties out of that, but they were on the Kingston Trio albums, but they were on thousands of albums. There are songs that we just take for granted, like This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine, and different ones. And she had she wanted to preserve this. She didn't want it to die, did she?
She was afraid. She was seeing that a lot of times in communities like ours, they were buying hymnals and songbooks from other places that didn't protect the heritage of the area.
Right.
And so she wanted to capture that while they were still around and encourage people to continue to sing those songs. And so what was ironic about what you just said is during the Depression, there were government agencies like the Works Progress Administration, and they had already sent John Lomax to the state of Alabama, and he had said, we didn't have folk songs in Alabama.
He liked going down to Texas, didn't he?
And Mississippi. He liked those as well.
Right.
But he didn't know Miss Tart at that time. And he ran across some of her work, and she invited him back, and she, as she said, she proved to him that we were plenty folk songy down here in Alabama.
Well, they used a wire recorder at first, didn't they?
They did.
That was only about 2.5 blocks away from this
it was
station.
They recorded at Baldwin Hill, but they also had a recorder that they put in the back of a trunk, and they would go out into the county.
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah,
that's it.
And eventually, he went over and found Lead Belly.
That's correct.
Did she direct him to Lead Belly?
No, he had actually found Lead Belly before he came back here.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, he and his son, and by the way, I'm going to be frank with you, his son had a very cantankerous reputation with these folkies when folk music got to be commercial. And Alan was real good about slapping his name on songs that had been around for 100 years, But anyway, John Lomax was really a hero. My friend Nolan Porterfield, who wrote the definitive biography of Jimmy Rogers, also wrote the definitive biography of John Lomax. I think it was The Last Cavalier. Isn't that correct?
Is. That's it.
But anyway, I'm excited about this book. I know you're excited to be a part of something like that, right?
It is, and it also brings back attention to those singers, Vera Hall, Doc Reed. Without them, we wouldn't have those songs on the Kingston
Tell them who
Trio.
Vera Hall and Doc Reed were.
Vera Hall and Doc Reed were probably the 2 most famous singers that she recorded. But Vera Hall sang, Another Man Done Gone.
Another Man Done Gone.
And Doc Reed had that wonderful, deep baritone voice, and he sang Steal Away Home.
Beautiful song.
He would only sing spirituals.
Right.
And Vera Hall would sing spirituals with him. They were cousins. Away from him, she sang a little bit of down-home blues. And we've had so many people. Even Moby, his last album, Play.
Oh, yeah.
Vera Hall got picked back up.
Isn't that beautiful? Well, I'll tell you what. Alan Tart, I'm trying to think what number he was. He was probably, I don't know, he was junior. He was a third, I guess.
He was the third.
Yeah. He absolutely loved Doc Reed, and they all loved Vera. And I didn't know that he could write anything quite as moving as he did, but he wrote, I guess you've seen that little treatise that he wrote about seeing Doc for the last time. But,
yes.
But Vera and Doc and these people were just hardworking,
they were
very humble folks. But hey, those kind of songs that they were singing, that's preservation. One of the objections that we had in that meeting I alluded to, one of them said, well, what's this got to do with preservation? All those are original songs. I didn't comment on that day, but do you realize that because of your help and your work that we have, let me think how many hours. We probably have, I don't know if you're even aware of this, we probably have in excess of 400 hours of songs from this part of the world, some of which, we've got, 100 radio shows and about 26 television shows, 3 documentaries, but we've preserved a lot of music from right here, right now.
That's correct.
And that's preservation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a song that's 90, 100 years old. What we preserve right now, that's preservation.
It is.
And, I'm tickled to death to be a part of it, and I'm glad you're a part of it because you're a lot more organized than most of us. And you do a great job. How many books have you written or contributed to?
Not a whole lot, maybe about 5 or 6 of those. And so it's been fun doing that. Like you said, it is preservation. And
you've got a great publishing press right here at University of West Alabama.
We do, Livingston Press. And they just actually released, I was a part of Bell's Letters, which was an anthology of women writers. But they just released Bell's too.
Okay.
And so that's really a rich experience as well. But one last thing on Doc Reed is don't forget that John Lomax dedicated his own biography to Doc Reed.
Oh, that tells you something. That's a testimony right there. Well, Tina, we appreciate the work that you've done over the years, the work you're doing now, and we're excited about this book, Alabama Women. It's out on the University of Georgia Press, and I think you're going to be very impressed. In fact, I know you're going to be very impressed, and I hope you'll pick up a copy of it. Tina, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
On Talking Back with Jacky Jack. It's been great today.
You're listening to Talkin' Back with Jacky Jack.
Dr. Russ MacArthur of MacArthur Chiropractic in Meridian says many back pains are merely a result of your body's attempt to regain or maintain balance. Once balance is achieved, these attempts become unnecessary and your back returns to normal. Dr. Russ MacArthur, developer of the MacArthur Method, recognizes the balance patterns the body uses and facilitates this recovery. Quite often, this recovery is accelerated and stabilization is obtained in only a few visits. Since 1978, Dr. Russ MacArthur has given thousands of adjustments with the